All right, all right, all right. Hey, everybody. Chris Courtney here, new Pragmatic. Oh, my goodness. It's the end of the work week. Well, it's not really. It's funny. Work week. That's such a weird term. It's the end of the work week if you don't enjoy what you're doing. I happen to enjoy what I'm doing. I get to interface with designers like you every single day. I get to take a peek in at your work. If anything, it pains me when I have to step away from it to do other things, like help my kid with their homework. Which, let's face it, I love my kid, but doing the homework part, bit of a pain in the ass. And who wants to do algebra, really? Eh, anyway, it's a wonderful morning here. We got some really interesting submissions this morning. Rebecca's back, and I got to brag on Rebecca a minute. All right, Rebecca's getting bombarded now with opportunities. So she has a freelance client. She's got this other agency that's nibbling. She's got somebody begging for her to come help them out with another project. It's like when it's literally a when it rains it pours sort of thing. And I talk about jobs and relationships as if they are interchangeable things, but they are, in that when you're looking for a partner, like, it can be the loneliest place in the world. Like, when you're looking for love, nobody wants you. But the moment you are on the precipice of finding love, everybody wants you, and they all run at you at the same time. And that's right where Rebecca is right now. Rebecca's been doing the work. She's been putting in the effort, and now she's right on the edge of some really good stuff, and like a dozen opportunities pop up. This is why jobs are like relationships. It's when you're out there alone in the desert, it's the loneliest place to be. Nobody wants to. It's all rejection everywhere you go. And then when you get really close, you don't have one option. You have 12. So, navigating those options is really important. And there's a few things that I try to follow when I've been in this situation before. I remember very specifically before I moved to Chicago, I had 3 job offers on the table, equal pay across the board. They all had matched one another. And for me, one of the big things was, where do I want to be for the future? Where could I be that would withstand change in the long term? And I felt like Chicago offered that opportunity in a way that another city might not. And Atlanta and Indianapolis were the other 2 cities that were on the board. What's weird is I could not have predicted, and I did not predict remote working the way that we work now. Didn't predict it. In some ways, that points to, boy, Indianapolis would have been a really great move, because cost of living there is dirt comparatively. It's almost half. So some things you can predict, other things you can't. In the case where you're faced with, let's get geography out of the question. Let's talk about the work. You have to look at the companies that are offering you the position. You have to compare them against. Do you think you'll have the support to do the work that you would like to do? Can you do your best work there with them? Or is that a less than perfect situation? That's the first cut. When you're looking at things, I would like you to think about, if you've got competing offers on the table, don't look at the price that they're offering. Okay? And luckily for me, price wasn't a thing, because they were all even. where am I going to do my best work? Where am I going to have the opportunity to grow? What is going to have where am I going to go that's going to have opportunities out for more work? And those are three criteria that you won't always have them all indexed to one company or another. But you should have a clear idea of where you can do your best work. Do I really feel like, and a lot of that looks you get a chance to look at what is this group or organization done in the past, or look at the client. Is this, if you're thinking about two clients, and they both want you to work on their stuff, is this client, and by the way, particularly important when you're first getting started out, because everything that goes in your portfolio is preparing you for the next job. Is this client in this is this project the type of work that I would want to really shout from the mountaintops about later? Is this something I'd put as my star project? And another thing to think about is if it's a client where it's an NDA situation where you can't talk about it. Okay, so if I can't talk about it, is it paying me enough to basically set this project on the sideline? Because I'm going to have to get that next gig. Or is this an opportunity with this client to do multiple projects, and it's not going to matter because I'm not going to be looking for that next gig, because basically this is going to be like an ongoing experience. So these are just a couple of the things that I really feel like you've got to grapple with when you're in a situation like Rebecca's in right now. Rebecca shared some work that this agency that she's ultimately starting the process with has pulled her in to do. And we're going to take a look at some of that to get a sense of what the road ahead is like, because she is preparing to jump in with this group, and we're going to try to help her formulate what that first day is like, because she's going to meet with a client and she's going to be asking stakeholder questions like just out of the gate. But they've been nice enough to provide her with an assortment of files and assets that kind of give you an idea of what she's going to be expected to do coming in. We're also going to take a look at Tejul's. Tejul's been working on her portfolio. She is like on the cusp of beginning her search over there in Orlando. So I am excited about that as well. Kara's checking in. Thank you, Kara. I'm so sorry you lost a day yesterday. It does happen. Particularly, you can't get too down on yourself, Kara. Kara's got a baby at home, full-time job. You sometimes cannot measure progress day to day. You got to measure it week to week. And so long as you're making progress for the week, I think you're good. Okay? So, this is a move at your own pace course for a reason. And one of the big things that one of the big things I've emphasized as of late is, regardless of what is happening out there in the world gone berserk over things, I'm not wearing a mask in here because I work by myself. I'm not exactly around a lot of germy people. But you may find yourself in a situation soon where work is really slowing down. And I offer safe refuge. This is safe harbor. This is where you can like really like focus your energy, continue to grow, not just sit at the house and play video games all day. Bring your time and energy into and pour it into developing your craft. The long game in all of this that's going on is investment in yourself. Investment in yourself for the future, because time will keep ticking. Whatever disasters happening will eventually pass. And out the other side of it, if you're given the gift of time because of some sort of slowdown, if you're given the gift of time, it's a resource that will eventually exhaust itself. Okay, you'll run out of time at some point. So when and if these disruptions occur, pour your time into your craft. I'm going to be here waiting to work with you. Okay? So we are going to continue to grow regardless of what happens outside of our front doors, because we can communicate like this. Now, power grid goes down, we're screwed. But we're not planning on that to occur. I haven't seen that happen anywhere. I don't think power grids themselves get sick. But I still see videos being posted from China and whatnot. So I think overall we're going to be okay. All right. And if you find yourself sidelined because you happen to get the flu or whatever, guess what? This is a remote program that's part time. Take your time, rest, get better, come back in. Okay. And I'll be doing the same thing. But I'll be here regardless. So I may have to put my little mask on and talk through the thing, but I think we'll get by. All right, let's go ahead and share the screen. I've monologued enough. Rebecca has shared this Cellwise project that she's going to be working on. So this is the initial Cellwise site. I did want to inspect it. I was just curious if it's okay. So it is to some extent. It is to some extent. Not remote, but responsive. It obviously has some work that can be done on it, so that's good to know. Like that illustration. I'll close that down. The interesting thing, I'm just curious. This is like a single page. It appears to be a single page site at the moment. So I guess, one of my first questions, Rebecca, would be if this is the lander, what are the other areas that we're really going to go into? What is the priority of the story that needs to be told here? Because if you look at, let's say digital clues, there's a nav here. We need to identify what this nav is, because that's going to tell you, that's going to bake out for you, okay, what are the wireframes that I'm going to be creating? And more importantly, when I go to this read more, this takes me to an about page. And this about page takes me to what they do, some facts about the company, although that's kind of wonky. So, this is the agency you'll be working for, so maybe you can help them out there as well. But let's go to, what's the contact? Okay, so the contact is just a form. That's fine. Let's go to case studies. Okay, so let's read the case study. It's really weird kind of how you have to kind of click on case studies and go into the case study page, click on more case studies, but they don't give you any idea of what you're going to run into. So my point here is that to grapple with the 10 pages that you're going to be creating, we need to flesh out what the nav is for this thing. And right now there's no clear nav set up. So it's got to be okay, are we going in and talking about the I'm seeing the platform has priority here. If we're going through it's automation, it's the platform, it's why, and is there more information coming with this? It's who the customers are. It's talking about how you can roll this thing out and why that's important. It's the team. There's a video. So for me, it comes down to I want to ask the, I want to ask the company, the stakeholder, hey, what's the long-term vision here? Like, what if we had to invest our time in building one thing, and we're not building one thing, we're building an entire site, but what's the priority here? And is this page reflective of the overall priority? Because again, I remember they put this together relatively quickly, so I don't necessarily know if this is the priority. Because right now, like, it's let's talk, and it's a link down to the contact page. I don't really think in the long-term strategy, let's talk is the call to action for this company. So what is the call to action? What's the main driver behind the site? Every company will have a different reason why they feel like they need some sort of marketing or product site. What is it for Sellwise? Okay. Because that's not immediately clear, because this is a company that's building a 5G network. Who are their customers? Are these individuals? Are these companies? I'm guessing that these are companies. This is like a B2B solution. This is not a I'm going to go to the Sellwise store and pick up my iPhone sort of company. So who's the customer? How do they typically come into contact with this customer? There's a lot of questions around who the user is that I have from looking at this. And you can look, so here's Digital Clues, here's Spark Beyond, here's Adonize. These are all companies that the agency has done work for, and you can tell that they do decent work. Although I don't personally care for this design, because it's just like I've got it kind of bounces around without my my real input. But regardless, and you can't like see the image and read the content at the same time. That's kind of a pain in the ass. And I have real questions about the accessibility of contrast on that. But I digress. I'm not here to judge their design. I'm here to help you figure out what it is that they want to do. When you look at the wireframes for this, there is a fair amount of animation here, and that's all possible. You just have to set up your hovers correctly in Figma. So here is, it looks like this might be timed, or maybe it's just triggering on hover. I'm not quite sure. But you get a sense that they get pretty close to what they're wanting to do here. That is a slider. That's cool. I didn't know it's not exact, because it just goes off the side. But they're able to kind of show what they want to do. But this is robust. This is a robust set of wireframes. This is all functioning. And when you look at the sitemap, which is down here, you get a real sense of like how many pages are really here. Like, this is a 17-page prototype, and I'm going to guess that it says phase 1 24.2. I'm guessing it probably went through 24 different rounds of discussion. Or it took 24 days. I'm not really sure I'm not sure exactly what that number is. But this is, there are 17 pages that are present here on a secondary level. So the site you'll be making, if they said oh, it's 10 wireframes, it won't be as robust as this one. I am kind of curious if we can find one that illustrates the size, and it seems like this It seems like this Spark Beyond gives you a kind of a better sense. If they're kind of baking out that it's going to be 10 pages, you got the home page, and then here's the nav, and then there's request the demo, and you can kind of see what's here. But ultimately, they have a lot more pages here, but that's because these are using like if I go to financial services, I bet you that financial services is here, and insurance looks very similar to financial services, and actually it doesn't. But maybe it's a slightly different template. Let's go to pharmaceuticals. Okay, so pharmaceuticals looks a lot more like financial services. Let's go to retail. Okay, so these templates that you'll be generating, Rebecca, are they may have many more pages inside, but that doesn't mean that each of these is going to be its own like unique design. So that's good to know from a perspective of how big is the lift that you're going to be doing for this company. But I do think that coming through, like, who's the customer, what's the push, what's the priority, like, pick one thing. What's if for this site to be successful, it must do blank, and you can only pick one. And I don't want to hear, but also no, I just want to hear the one thing, and then once we get the one thing, then we can talk about all the other stuff. But we've got to identify, like, what is that core? What is your core mission? What are you trying to do? And I'm guessing that they're trying to educate the market on 5G. And if you're trying to educate the market, okay, who is the market? Are you trying to educate the general population or business owners? And what type of business owners? Are you talking about small business owners? Are you talking about large telcos? I'm guessing that they're a telco play, but I could be wrong. But it's because it says deployment of your 5G network. That means that, like, they're talking about a Vodafone or Verizon or AT&T if you're here in the States, T-Mobile. Like, those are the customers, and those customers are going to be highly technical customers. They know a lot about this business, so that's why our smart RAN automation. I don't know what RAN automation is. I'm going to guess that I could probably find out. Yeah, and never mind. Now we know who the customers are. It's Nextel, it's Beeline, it's Movistar, it's Verizon. So these are the customers. All right. Yeah. So maybe you don't ask the customers question, because you have some of that here already. Here's a question I might ask, being that you can kind of point to this and go, okay, if the customers are here and they've selected Cellwise to help them launch and leverage their next generation networks with speed, ease, and efficiency, do we talk about how that happens anywhere? I know it's agile and scalable. It's open architecture. It's full automation. Does it make sense to have that in a slider? How we do it. I don't want to lose this information inside of here, hoping that somebody makes it to it. So that's another concept that I would look at here is, like, if this is your story, and are you worried anybody's going to miss it being in a slider? And that may be a conversation that you have with the team. Does our team really need to be on the front page, or is that something that can go into the nav and it can be an our team page? Sorry, ice just like all on the grill. But those are some questions that I would start with Um, seems like there's a video at the bottom. Your network journey starts here. I would almost bring that up and try to get them to consume that faster rather than kind of burying it at the bottom. But that's where I would start my conversation with Cellwise, and then I would also have a conversation the with the agency that you're working with to make sure that you don't overbuild, because I could see you having a very robust conversation with the stakeholder, and then finding yourself building a unique page for each thing. Try to templatize this as much as possible, okay? So that they have reusable assets as they go. If they need to, spin up another page for a case study for for a company that they've done this work for, and that's what I'm guessing is going to happen. Is they're going to have case studies based off the work that they've done for their customers that outlines kind of what the platform does and why you should use them instead of somebody else. I'd also ask about competitors, like who are the competitors for Cellwise? Because if I know who the customers are, who else does this? You want to do some competitive analysis to know, okay, so are we missing some big points? Are we just saying the same exact thing, and there's no way to differentiate between these markets? I think that's a very important thing to key in on. Is, okay, I know who your customers are, and this is maybe where I should have went with it earlier, but this is why we talk these things through. I know who your customers are. Who's your competition? And are you concerned about that competition in this specific market, being Israel? Okay, let's move on. And I'm going to close these down. Hope that was helpful, Rebecca. Let's take a look at Tejel's idea board and Bergen sites. She says she has a ton of adjustments to make for mobile, and I'm going to. Oh, it looks like we're already here. So let's check the status. Yeah, we worked on this yesterday. Okay, so there's a lot more here. Let's go ahead and restart the local server. We're opening up in idea board and really tightening things up. Love the animation still, big fan. That's been fixed for yesterday. There's that. Love these. It's fantastic. And I'm going to take a time out. So I will be right back, my good friends. So just hang tight. Just be back in 1 second. All right. Thanks for the patience there. Sometimes you just have to take a moment. Okay, so we're taking a look at the design work that's been done on Bergen, and specifically what we had happen, or not Bergen, I'm sorry, Idea Board. Specifically, we had some concerns about margin yesterday, and I'm just kind of taking a look at. Okay, there's that, and let's just take a look at this top section. Okay, so that's all kind of operating as I would hope it would. Okay, so I look down here at roll, and I see this my roll left, right? And it's interesting because you have container on this one, but then not on my roll. And that's because I'm guessing that if I were to expand this out, this is disappearing. I'm gonna guess that it's probably like a no. Okay, so you got that at no mobile, which is fine. But you got this a V4 my roll left, right? And this restructure. So you get down to a certain size, poop, and then it's like, okay, well, what happens here? What do we need to do for V4 my roll left? And, I'm not mad at you for the padding left of 4%. I'm guessing that maybe that's where container is. Let's just take a look. So container's at 92, and that's, when you do 4 left, 4 right, that get, you're doing a little math there. Not doing 6th grade algebra, thank goodness. Oh man, it's not so hard. Let me explain. Algebra is not hard. It's just when you parachute into it without having done any prep work, you haven't looked at it in I don't know 20 years, and you have to try to recall how to do algebra, for like finding random things, not necessarily related to your day-to-day business. It can be really difficult to try to boot up something from the Wayback Machine. And then, of course, your kid thinks that you're Google and you should just be able to know it like, boop, boop. Oh, you enter the input and it pops out an answer. I digress, and I really should. I should focus on this. But here, we're going to have to go looking around, and we're going to go root around for this V4 my roll left. All right? And here we go. We're in style. V4 my roll left. There at B. So this is within a media query. I just want to see if there's 2 of them. Okay, so on this one, there's padding left of 32, and on this one, there's padding left of 4. So what I'm guessing is I could easily do this, say my roll right, and it's just going to give me that padding to where this now lines up. And voila, it's there. Okay, so I just want to make sure I didn't break it as it goes up. I did not. So, this is kind of a pain in the rear because you're like, do I have to do that? And the answer is yeah. You've got to pay close attention to like when that's occurring. As we go through, let's continue just kind of moseying on down. So we've got this, and I'm just paying attention to how this is all set up. That's fine. And I'm looking specifically at the yellow because that's like the margin. So earlier we were looking at you were using padding. Here we're using margin, and that's because here. Well, that's on a color too. But I think the color is on the entire background. So anyway, you're just pushing that div around a little differently. As we continue going down, this is all working. That's working as well. Working. 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 So this is an interesting area that we should look at, because right now this is like a lot of indentation, padding of 15, and I'm wondering, would padding of 10 be okay, or 5? Maybe 5's not enough. Maybe 8. Like, again, let's go back to where you were. 15. 15 is huge. Getting a lot of weird breaks here, mood boards, things like that. 10 though, you get rid of that. And yeah, I really think I would go with 10 here, but again, that's your call. I do think it is something that once you begin to see it at a slightly different size, and this is a minor thing. I think it makes it a little easier to read, because it's less to scroll. We've got this user flows bit here, and I think that's something we should take a look at. So the flow itself, we kind of talked about this yesterday, how to, because right now the flow is setting on top of the flow is relative, and this is absolute, and you've got your padding and whatnot. I had a code pen that I was using for this sort of hover sort of thing. I just want to go to my dashboard, see if we can pull up. Yeah, transition. So it's a transition, but it's the same idea. You've got this class of info that's basically your button, and let's find that section. So it's class of info, and it's absolute, and the height is 30%, the width is 100. That's not helpful. I wonder if, with regard to this flow, because if I say width, something crazy like width 100, that's going to take it all the way across. I'm taking the right and bottom position off. Actually, if I put the bottom position here, and then if we said the width was 50, and then we said the right position was 50, 30, sorry. It's because I've set this to 50? No. It's interesting. Okay. Well, that's on top, and that's where we want it. What I'm doing now is I'm basically just peeling back all the extra layers that we have here to see if we can get it somewhat in the center. So there I've got it left at 100, bottom 50. But it's not working as a button, which is interesting. You know, and we did have a talk yesterday about maybe pulling it off of that. The other question I have is, Tedral, this is for you. Is that background, is this image large enough to even display on mobile? Or are we fighting an uphill battle on mobile with this because it's so small, it's got this button on top, and the question then becomes, would it be better if this was just not absolute, just up there in the corner with a padding left of 4%, margin left. It'd help if I could spell like that, and then just do a hide, or class no mobile. Something like that. I really think for mobile, maybe that's that. Maybe write a media query that basically puts a no mobile on that image because it's playing down too small anyway, and then coming back and just aligning this over here. I think that would be the smarter way to go. That's all fine. Okay. Word color, icons, type, hi-fi. Yeah, I think this overall has come along a long way. I think if we can, come back and sort out, and I think we've got a solution here. The solution is just hide that image because it's not gonna show up large enough anyway. Move the user flow button over and call that a day. Look at potentially bringing down the size of the padding on this to where you're not getting weird line breaks on the text. This stuff is all working well. I believe I actually went in and added the change up here on the my role so that it shows up correctly using the media query, and that's basically where I would leave it. Okay, we're gonna hop over to Bergen for just a second. Okay, so I see like the first area here, and this is quite common. So you've got this overview, and the overview has padding on it. Okay, and I get some of the padding, like padding 10 pixels to the top isn't a bad idea because it's too tight to that label otherwise, but everywhere else it's unnecessary. But let's keep going. And again, I told Tedral this yesterday, that her ability to code on her own so far advanced from where she was just a few months ago. Back in November, she started watching a bunch of my other tutorials, and it's kind of mind-blowing to see how much progress she's made in a relatively short amount of time. Um, yeah, so overall, Tedral, aside from a couple of margin errors and again discussion of do we use that much padding, what do we do with this user flow area, aside from those items, these are all working really well. Although that's busted. So cannot get project. Oh, I think I see it. This is music. So if I go down music, let's fix that. Let's actually type music in properly and let's find it. Oh, there's a V in front of it. There we go. Let's see if that fixes it. Yes, it worked. Just as it says there, it worked. Let's go fix that overview as well. So overview looks like left column. Let's just look for overview in CSS. And new overview. It looks like this might be inside of a media query. It is not, but this one is. So the question is, if I said, will that fix it for our purposes up here? And it does. Let's get out of mobile and see if it still holds. I want to make sure I'm not breaking anything, and it does. Okay. Well, that's acceptable. Okay, Tedral. I really think that you aside from the couple of things on idea board that we discussed that were like, what do you want to do here? I think you're in a really good spot. I want to see your resume. Like, that's the next thing I want to see, Tedral. I want to get that resume in because we need to start fine tuning that. And yesterday you submitted like an old one, but let's get that into a new format. But remember, not only are we wanting it in a new format, but we're wanting to simplify it. Okay. We had a discussion yesterday during our call, and I know that like really for you it's just getting the first cut out. Once we get the first cut out, we can go back and forth and have feedback on it. We can't have feedback on something we don't have a first cut on. So I'm going to take this moment to stop and push up my changes. So we adjusted a couple things. And whammo. That's it. Okay, Tedral. Rebecca, Tedral, rest of the crew. That's going to do it for this edition of the Feedback Loop. I hope you've been having a wonderful week. Aside from all the chaos that might be happening in the world, I hope that you're making progress. This is an infinite game. This is not a finite game. There is no finish line that we're aiming for. We're aiming for consistent growth. We're aiming, there are a lot of starting lines. Rebecca's at 1 right now. Tedral, you're going to be at 1 very soon. James, Katie, Kara, you're in a good spot. I want you to be in a better spot. Luigi, Eve. Quite the cohort of talent coming through right now. I am not currently pushing for new enrollments. but I will be releasing an incentive program soon because I want to really, if you're growing through the program, you also represent the easiest way to get this to more people, and I want to reward you for that when that does happen. So be on the lookout for that. We're gonna launch that probably mid March, um, and just we'll talk more about that later. But anyway, that's feedback loop for Friday, February 27th, the last day of the month. Might be the 28th. It is the 28th, and no leap year this year, so it's March 1st tomorrow. Be well, take care, and I'll talk to you later. See ya.